Hey everyone, and welcome back to Reading Crossbow. My name is Lana, and as always, this is my co-host Rob.
Hey, Lena, and welcome to Season 2.
Season 2! Oh my gosh, we made it this far. I wasn't so sure when we started this out. We're like, oh, we'll do 10 episodes. 10 episodes is like threshold that you have to like make it past as like a YouTuber, and here we are, 53, 54 episodes later.
Yeah, it's been an interesting learning experience for me.
Yeah, for me too. And I've been in this sort of like media online world for a while, and like you just don't stop learning and things keep changing. So it's always fun. And then when you bring in like a co-host, there's a partner to work off of. It's different too. So like, it's been fun. It's been a good time, Rob.
I'm glad it's been fun. And with the start of Season 2, we just kind of wanted to reiterate what our plan is, at least for the near future. So we're still planning on doing 2 books a month. One of my books and one of Lena's books. And we're going to do 2 to 3 additional episodes, which are covering other topics.
All right, but enough on future episodes. Let's get to this episode, which is all about books that we think people should pre-order for 2025. So we're going to start out with books that we read season 1 and their sequels. So books that we just cannot wait. We've pre-ordered, we want to read these, and I'm just going to say them all first, and then we're going to get into them. So we have Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros, Emberclaw by L.R. Lamb, The Ragpicker King, Cassandra Clare, A Drop of Corruption by Robert Jackson Bennett, The Book That Held Her Heart, I bet you guys can guess whose that one is, by Mark Lawrence, and The Tainted Con by Taryn Matheru. But I think some of those we overlap on, right? Like we both pre-ordered some of these, and some of them are just like our individual picks.
I think for most of these were some of the books that either we enjoyed the most or were really interested in the sequel because of how the first one ended. So why don't you lead us off with the first one?
So the first one, we're going to go in order too. We should let you all know that. The first one comes out January 21st, and I definitely ordered this one the minute I found out that you could pre-order it, and it was Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros, which is the follow-up to Iron Flame, which was the follow-up to Fourth Wing, which is actually the second book we covered in season 1, and I'm really excited about it. Actually, not because I think the book series is like stellar or overly fantastic, but like Rebecca Yarros does a really great job with characters, and I'm just kind of attached to some of these characters and can't wait to read them. I don't think the books are like amazing or anything.
Yeah, I actually just finished Iron Flame today in preparation for this episode. And yeah, I really just want to see where this trilogy is going. I really enjoyed Fourth Wing. And Iron Flame, I stumbled a little bit at the beginning, but once I actually got into the heart of the story, it's a fun ride. It's a good book, and I want to see where this ends.
Yeah, same. Book 1, great. Book 2, I'm kind of with you, except more on the end for me. I'm like, what the hell? So it's like now I just have to keep reading to figure out like why the what the hell. But yeah, this leads us into our next pre-order for sequels, and that's yours.
And this was originally a sequel to one of your books, Lena, which was Dragonfall, but the sequel's called Emberclaw by L.R. Lamb, and it's coming out in March 4th. And this was actually one of my favorite books of the year. I really enjoyed Dragonfall. I felt like it had a really kind of unique story, and the way the dragons almost feel like aliens to this world, but they used to be here. Like, this world has a lot of potential, and especially with that first book being so short, I'm really excited to see where this book's going to go for book 2.
Yeah, I found myself I was on a work trip last week, and I found myself recommending this book to other people. And like that is just like true test, right? Like all this time later, I'm like, oh yeah, you should definitely pick up this book. I think it's great. I didn't rank it as high as maybe it could have been. We did an episode where we revisited some things, but it's a great book. I'm excited to read the next one. So we're sharing most of these. We're gonna get to one where I'm definitely not gonna pre-order, but that's okay. Rob is. But the next one we're both interested in, which is The Ragpicker King, Cassandra Clare. I love Cassandra Clare. I have a ton of books from her. This comes out March 19th, and it is the sequel to Swordcatcher. And for those of you who watched that episode, Swordcatcher Starts out pretty slow. It is definitely a book where there's a lot of world building. It's what Claire does. I'm used to that. It was good Rob got to see that from her, but we both really loved the character of the Rag Picker King.
Yeah, he's probably the most kind of interesting character that we got that didn't get a lot of time spent on it, but there was a lot of potential in that character and like, what does it mean to be the Rag Picker King?
Yeah, where did he come from? What the heck? And it's just very mysterious character. I'm super excited, just to read about him. And then also what happens to the main character, the female lead. I mean, she has a very interesting story, and the magic that she has is like a different kind of magic that we haven't had in a lot of our other books, and it's like medicinal to its healing. So I find this all super super interesting. And I actually would love to see more of that kind of magic.
Yeah, and once again, that brings us to another sequel to one of your original choices, which is The Tainted Cup. The book is called A Drop of Corruption by Robert Jackson Bennett. It comes out on April Fool's Day. The Tainted Cup was very much of a surprise last year. Neither one of us really knew what we were getting into, but once you got into that book, it was just a wild ride. It just took you in all kinds of new and unusual places that you don't get in very many fantasy novels at all. I mean, we even debated whether or not is it arguably sci-fi or fantasy, because it's just that interesting of a world. And amongst all of these, I think this one also has the potential to just wow us once again, because honestly, I don't know where this is going to go. And I'm excited for it.
No idea. Yeah, I hope more kaiju. I want to see the big scary monsters. I don't think we got enough of them. And you kind of promised me them last year at the beginning of season 1. Like, we're going to get this type of thing. And definitely, like, can see it in the book. And also just, like, samesies, right? Like, what the heck? Where are they going with this? And it does. It crosses that bridge a little bit between sci-fi. And out of this list, there's not a ton of sci-fi on it. So excited to see that. And then biopunk Sherlock Holmes. So like, if you guys missed that episode, go back and watch it, because like, just funky. There's no other way to say it. It's just kind of funky.
Yeah, it's just crazy, especially like the way they use even like giant mushrooms as air conditioners and air filters. Like, it's just wild to where that book went, and I'm down for some more. Following that up is actually probably the one that Lena's a little less excited for, but I am completely sold, and that is The Book That Held Her Heart, the third book in the Library Trilogy by Mark Lawrence. And that's coming out on April 8th. I have read both the first and second books in this series, and this is just a tremendous series. It's not the dark fantasy that I was expecting to show to Lena, but this is a very different kind of story, especially the way it's been masterfully plotted out, because especially when you're dealing with things like time travel and paradoxes, if you don't plan it out, it comes across as just hand wavy nonsense. And so you have to really plan that out and plant those seeds well ahead of time. And I think Mark Lawrence just nailed it in this series.
And Mark Lawrence is a beautiful writer, so I have to give that to him. Like, it's a beautiful book in terms of reading it. If you love just like strong writing, pick that up. As Rob said, I'm not going to pick it up, but that's okay. I think that's why there's two of us on the show, different tastes. But the next book we are both interested in again, and this was actually my end of the year book of the year that I read, and that was Dragon Rider by Taran Matharu. And the sequel is called The Tainted Con. And what I think is super interesting, I was like doing a bit of prep work for the show today, and I hadn't realized that like A Court of Thorns and Roses, the ACOTAR series, came out in like, I think it was 2017. I didn't actually read it until like 2020, 2021. And that's about when the book started taking off all over TikTok, things like that. And it made me think about Taran Matharu, because I don't think that this author is like crazy widespread known yet. And I wouldn't be surprised if after the next book, we start hearing more about this author on like the book talks and such, because like it is a great series and it's hard to find like good epic fantasy, and it's new, so I'm super excited for The Tainted Con.
Yeah, and he's been tremendous. He even like commented on our videos, and very positive comments from him. So I couldn't be more excited to read this book. And I think I said it was my favorite magic system of last year because it has the most potential for growth. And this second book, I wouldn't be surprised if this kind of world gets that much bigger with how they grow this magic.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, I feel like a fan for life now. Like, I work in social media, I work with artists too, and like content creators. And like, knowing that either him or his social media team took the time to comment on a small channel, like, that's just amazing. It just feels good. It's just like, okay, I'm in. What are you writing next? Okay, I'll pre order it. So, thank you, Taryn Matheru.
Yeah.
But next up is books that are not sequels to books that we've read on the show, but books that we feel we just have to pre-order, and you should too. And first one up is from Rob.
And some of these books we will definitely be covering on the show. Other ones, maybe, maybe not. But these are ones that we were picking even just for ourselves, books that we're very excited about. And so this first one is called Conan, Cult of the Obsidian Moon by James Lovegrove. This one actually comes out this year, November 19th. Now, James Lovegrove is an author I've read several different series of his. And both of the series I've read of his were actually adaptations of other popular media. Specifically, he has 2 different Sherlock Holmes stories. One is playing Sherlock Holmes kind of straight and normal, and the other one reimagines Sherlock Holmes in a Call of Cthulhu style mythos world. And basically Sherlock and Holmes are basically fighting back, the mythos. And those are just tremendous fun reads. He also did a couple Firefly, like the TV show. He did a couple novels based in that. And what I especially liked about those books was you could almost picture in your head the entire time the original cast like reading these lines. It was written so well, it blended into just a normal script of a TV episode. And I'm excited to see where he takes a Conan story, because I know he can nail the original author's voice so well.
This feels very comic booky and very Rob. Like, this is Rob all over it. Of all the books that you've like recommended on the show, it's just like Rob stamp. Boop. And I don't really have any comments. Conan, cool. Firefly, cool. And I'm just like here for the Rob ride on this one. And I could see myself actually reading this one. I don't know that it's a pre-order for me, but sounds awesome.
Okay. So what do you have then?
Okay, so this next book is also a sneaking it in. We're kind of saying it's 2025, but this one comes out in December 2024 too. So we're kind of fibbing here on it being a 2025 book, but that's okay. This one, I don't have any information on. I purposely have not dove into this. It's all over Book Talk. It comes out December 3rd. I don't want to know. I have a feeling it's going to be quite smutty, very fey, very like young, not like just barely legal teenager human, I don't know, and then like the 1,000-year-old dude again. Like, I just, because it's all over Book Talk and all I know about it is it's fae and it's alchemy, and I'm like, okay, I'll take that if I need to read one giant Book Talk phenomenon this year. So, and I don't think that I have. So this is it for me. It's Quicksilver. It's by Callie Hart. It comes out December 3rd. Sure, why not?
Okay. All right. Well, my second book here is called Scum of the Earth by Alexander C. Kane. It comes out in January 14th. And like the last book, this is an author I've previously read their books. Alexander Kane previously did a series called Andrea Vernon and the Corporation for Ultrahuman Protection, which is almost a satire of comic book worlds. It reimagines as, instead of the military industrial complex, it's the superhero industrial complex. And the main character, Andrea, she's just like a normal office worker for one of these superhero corporations, and she's just trying to get through her day and make sure the company is being successful. And just the way that was written was just delightful. It's very humorous. It's very much what like Starter Villain was supposed to be. But back to this book. Scum of the Earth takes place after an alien invasion has already succeeded. And the main character has decided to just throw his lot in with the new overlords and is helping them to rule over humanity. He's just kind of like Andrea Vernon. He's just a normal person just trying to get through life. And in this case, he's helping the bad guys succeed. Now, what's going to happen in this course of the story, at least from the description, is there's some human resistance that's still fighting against these alien conquerors, and they put their sights on him as being their way in. And if this holds true to Andrea Vernon, I think it's just going to be a funny, satirical look at this genre.
Also very Rob. Like you're like stepping into your own on like choosing books for this show. Like season 1, I think we were just kind of like dipping our toe in. Season 2, you're just like, you're robbing all over this. I don't know. I read this and I'm just like, Scum of the Earth. This feels like Starter Villain meets the last James S.A. Corey book that we read. I don't know why, but it feels like it's mashed up. I'm super excited to hear about Andrea Vernon and what she writes that previous series, but not sure I'm 100% sold on this one. But I'm just like excited to hear you talk about it though, because it's fun to hear you geek out on these types of things, even though I'm like, I don't know about that.
Yeah, and the Andrea Vernon, especially the first book, is just a ton of fun to read. And yeah, I think this will be great. But what do you have?
So this next book I have a bit of a caveat on it because the pre-order is going to be, it's like twofold. Okay. So The Dark Mirror by Samantha Shannon comes out February 2025. And it's book 6 in the Bone series. So I'm putting this on a pre-order list because I think that fans of fantasy who've read the Bone series love Samantha Shannon. They should pre-order this, of course. I haven't read the Bone series, but I want to read the Bone series. So I think this is more of like a note for me of like, hey, read the Bone series. So you might recognize the name Samantha Shannon on the show because we read The Priory of the Orange Tree. And she's a very well-received author. The Bone series is like a very well-received book as well. Like people love this series. So I'm going to get into the Bone series. I'm hoping I can actually read through the Bone series pretty quickly so I can actually get to book 6. So that's sort of the caveat on there is it's like I haven't actually read this series, but a lot of my friends have and say it's amazing.
Okay.
And then the next one is one that I think maybe we could both be interested in. And it's like very highly anticipated. And that is Sunrise of the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. That's out March 18th. And then if you recognize that name, of course, it's from the author of The Hunger Games. So this is a prequel.
Okay.
This comes out, it's Haymitch's story. And Haymitch, if you watch the movies, is Woody Harrelson. And I just loved Haymitch's character. And it's one of those interesting situations where like typically I love the characters in the books more, but I actually liked Haymitch in the movies more, played by Woody Harrelson, and they're making a movie out of it too. So
of course, at this point, why not?
Why not? And can you have Woody Harrelson again? I hope so. At some point. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, maybe they'll have him like bookending the story, like telling the story or something. But yeah, no, I think he's one of the most interesting characters that you really don't get enough information about because he's not the center of any of the previous books.
Yeah, I mean, and his story is interesting because like there's only been one victor in Section 12. So other sectors in the Hunger Games have like a whole victor's village. They live together, they hang out together, especially District 1, District 2, where they've had a lot of victors. So he's lived alone, I think it is for like 14 years, 24 years. It's a long time, all by himself. He doesn't hang out with anybody else in the village, and he's an alcoholic. So he's like destroyed his liver for that many years. And like, obviously the Hunger Games are like awful, but his sound like worse in a way. So I just really want to know like what awfulness happened in his Hunger Games to get him to that point of devastation. And then also like he's on this rope, he's on this leash to have to come back and help them out, which is the Hunger Games that we've all seen in the series with Katniss. So yeah, super super amazing character. We've talked a lot about characters on the show and people you just think about, and he's one of them. So yeah, very excited for this book. But you have the next book coming out in May, right?
Yeah, and similar to your Samantha Shannon book, the book I chose is called The Incandescent by Emily Tesh. Emily Tesh wrote the book we reviewed last year, which was Some Desperate Glory, which was the show's first 5-star rating. And, my favorite book of the year. I said when we read that I was absolutely on board. I will absolutely read the next book. And this is it. While the last one was sci-fi, this new one is actually fantasy, specifically dark academia. So I think
we tend
you're
to love on the show.
That's one of your favorite genres. So I haven't read too much about what's the actual plot is, and I don't need to. I'm on board because I enjoyed Some Desperate Glory that much.
Yeah, I think Emily Tesh is a great writer. So even though I didn't love Some Desperate Glory, would I be interested in another book that Emily Tesh writes? I think so. I think sure. Especially because two of the characters in particular, when they get into the weird kind of timeline stuff on Some Desperate Glory, I was very interested in their love story, which didn't happen. We didn't get to hear more from that. So who knows? So I would like to see that kind of writing in dark academia. So I think I'm going to have you read it first. Although I'm sure you're going to tell me you love it, but like from a Lana perspective, you know what I like in books now. And so read it. Let me know. This comes out. When did it come out? May.
Yes.
So maybe by then. Yeah.
So that book comes out on May 13th, but also it comes out on May 13th, which is absolutely going to be a choice for this show, is The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. Joe Abercrombie, I don't know if I've mentioned it nearly enough,
I think you've mentioned him a lot.
is the first Law series that he wrote, the trilogy, is probably my favorite fantasy novels. But I haven't been able to bring it onto the show because in season 1, we were focusing mostly on new book series. And in order to get started with like his previous books, we'd have to go back like 10, 15 years to get to really get the start of a lot of his books, because many of them are in a single shared world for the book series. But when I saw this one was coming up, it's set in a brand new world as far as I can tell. And I immediately pre-ordered this. I knew we'd have to read this on the show because I want you, Lana, and the audience to experience probably my favorite author.
So I've only really heard Joe Abercrombie, I don't know, maybe twice on the show. Just kidding, like 100 times on the show. So this was not on my pre-order list, but you've just confirmed I'm gonna be reading it on the show, so I guess I'll pre-order it. If I'm gonna order a book and spend money, I might as well get the pre-order version, right? Like some nice fancy version.
And so just to kind of give you an idea what the book is about, it is about a priest who gets assigned by his church to preach to a brand new flock. Now this flock is murderers, evil wizards, and outright monsters. And through his preaching, he's going to bring them to do the Lord's good work. This definitely sounds a lot more like a Suicide Squad, or maybe like Hellboy, something like that, where they're basically an organization is trying to grab up all the bad guys and turn them to a righteous cause.
I'm just gonna say over and over and over. Okay. I already agreed to this. Like, you just heard me say it. You've all heard me say it. Like I said, sure, I'll go ahead and pre-order it. And then you go with that garbage. And I'm like, oh, shoot. But, okay. I mean, I'm here. I'm just going to say it again.
All right.
Okay, so if that wasn't enough for you, this last book is probably going to surprise not just you, but pretty much everyone who's ever watched this show, which is August 25th of 2025. A book comes out from R.F. Kuang.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be pre-ordering it. And this is probably surprising to you because I did not like the first book that you recommended on the show, which is The Poppy Wars by the same author.
Yeah.
But they're writing, the book is called Catabasis. Are you surprised?
Maybe a little, because I think there were some of the other authors I liked, like Emily Tesh, that you are a lot more on board for.
Yeah, I didn't think R.F. Kuang was a bad writer.
Okay.
I didn't think that she fleshed out her characters enough, and I was just missing some pieces. But the story was interesting. A lot of it was interesting, and like they've written another book called Babel, I believe, that's very, very well received. And I have a friend of mine, I've talked about her on the show quite a bit. She recommends books to me, and we've covered these books on the show, and we correspond via Instagram. And we're talking back and forth about books a lot, and they were like, you have to read this author again. You need to give this author another try. But I didn't want it to be like all irked in my brain of other people's reviews, other books that have been read. So the fact that R.F. Kuang is coming out with a brand new book, I thought, you know what, this is going to be a good place for me to start to read the author again. And then when I read the description of the book, I had kind of a weird moment of like, what? Because this author is, I believe, a history major or professor or something like, yeah. So very like, I would think they'd write more like, oh, I don't know, like deep kind of books. But this book is about two academic rivals that have to go to hell to rescue their advisor. And to me, this sounds like a Cassandra Clare or a Sarah J. Maas. Like, why is this an R.F. Kuang?
Yeah, I don't know if I ever had an academic advisor that I would go to hell for.
Yeah. So and then another, like, little snippet about the book is it's supposed to be, or is being raved as, for people who've pre-read this, 2025's most unexpected love story. And then this love story is going to hell. So I'm like, I'm just baffled by this. So I feel like this is a pre-order must, because it's so freaking weird what is happening in the world, and why is this a book from R.F. Kuang? I have no idea. But here we are. I'm pre-ordering it. I think people who watch our show would like to pre-order it too.
Okay. I'm very curious on where this is going, so maybe you'll get more excited for the more dark books again.
Perhaps.
So just a quick run through once again. The books that we are sequels to stuff we already covered are Onyx Storm on January 21st, Emberclaw on March 4th, The Ragpicker King on March 19th, A Drop of Corruption on April 1st, The Book That Held Her Heart on April 8th, and The Tainted Con on April 22nd. All of these are in the first half of the year, so it should be a good first half.
Yeah, and then other books we think you should pre-order. Just a quick recap. We have Rob's choice, Conan, Cult of the Obsidian Moon. That's actually this year, so we snuck that on here, November 19th. Another snuck it on here was the Book Talk sensation, supposedly, Quicksilver by Callie Hart, December 3rd. And then books coming out in 2025 that we think are pre-order musts is Scum of the Earth, January 14th. The Dark Mirror, coming out in February 2025. Sunrise of the Reaping, that is March 18th, part of the Hunger Games series. And then The Incandescent, by our, as Rob says, our first 5-star book on the show, author Emily Tesh, May 13th. The Devils by Joe Abercrombie, also on May 13th. And then Catabasis by R.F. Kuang in August 2025. So that is our recap. Books you should pre-order now. Get them on your list.
Be sure to like and subscribe, especially if you want to come back next week for our first season 2 review. It's going to be a doozy.
Sarah J. Maas, our first Sarah J. Maas on the show. We waited a year to do this.
So again, check out our Discord and hope to catch you next time. Thank you very much.